call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Approval of the agenda.
I'd move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. First up is information items, a voluntary reduction of 2 additional days for 25-26 contract year for the Director of Business and Operations, Elise Weddle.
This is just me, following suit with our directors and principals and administrators, with forfeiting 2 additional paid days for my 10 for 25-26.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And everybody else that's done that. So thank you. Do we have anybody here to speak to the board? Doesn't look like it. Blake, is there anybody online? Nope. Let's skip that part. Student representative reports. Esri?
Girls Soccer is hosting a car wash fundraiser this Saturday at Northwest Farm Supply from 9 to 12. And an additional one will be held at Les Schwab next Friday, also from 9 to 12.
Thank you. Olivia?
Volleyball currently is having a youth volleyball camp. We had about 50 kids show up today, and I think all the campers really enjoyed it and learned a lot. And then it goes on tomorrow too, and the same kids will be coming. There is volunteer hours available at the Jubilee Food Bank on Wednesdays for students, and also opportunities at the Princess Theater.
Thank you. Any questions for Esri or Olivia?
How old do you have to be to volunteer at Jubilee?
I know if you're at the high school, like it's any high school student, but I figure they will like have anyone volunteer. Or maybe it's like if you're middle school, if like an adult is present.
Okay.
I don't really know the age.
Right. Moving on to discussion items, the 25-26 student handbook.
Okay, the handbook is obviously available to you. We printed it for you to look at. It's a discussion item. I'd like you to understand there's not a lot of changes in the majority of it. It's in the discipline section, that has to do with the new laws. And we've taken guidance. It is in the hands of legal counsel right now to make sure that, right, that we're meeting, that the RCWs are correct and different things like that. So, you know what I mean? That's where we're at. We're just trying to put it out for public comment and draft. We're working on some formatting, some different things like that. So I'm open to questions, but we wanted you to have a printed copy. We want it to be available electronic. Our goal, if we were to have a goal, would be to put it as an action item for approval at the July 23rd meeting, because it has to go to print, right? But the very, very latest we could do would be the first meeting in August. But unless we have major concerns brought forth, if you take it home, read it, or if we have any feedback, the sooner we can get the feedback so we can answer the questions would be great. So that's kind of where we're at.
I had one question. I'm not even sure. I think it's page 64. It's kind of the discipline matrix when it gets into all the different categories of discipline. Can you help? I mean, I get it in some point, but a lot of the discipline issues don't apply to K through 4. Is that, and some of them can be very harmful, I guess, if not violent. Not to say that we would have one, but to have no metric, we have no recourse, I guess, for discipline wise, especially if it's removing them from school. Why is that?
I'm gonna, this sounds I'm not pushing it off, but I'm gonna let Kevin talk a little bit about that. There are different rules and laws. We have that in our discipline handbook. So I'm gonna pass that down to Kevin a little bit, and Deanna, we're gonna tag team those answers, because I don't think there's a, like, according to, I don't know that there's a very specific rule, but there's very different guidelines for K2. And so, 3 or 4, okay. Oh, you don't have a microphone. We will share microphone. Got a green light?
I think you're talking about expulsions and long-term suspensions.
Correct.
Yeah, by law, we're limited to just short-term suspensions. And that limitation is, I believe it's 10 days within a trimester
For basically a short-term suspension.
for short-term, yes.
You really can't.
So I can tell you that your high students with higher behaviors, you kind of have to track those days. For example, you could give 10 days right up front, but then you would be out of days for the rest of the trimester. And we don't have options on this. This is law. So that's why the matrix limited for K4.
It's also limited, it's really limited because students in pre-K4 are developmentally, do they understand the choice they made that got them to that, that decision or whatever action that they might have committed. So it is also based on developmentally. It's kind of like when you hear in court, at which age they might charge kids with certain crimes. And if you're talking about a 8, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old, there's some limits because the discipline to a child that age, even the suspension. You have a 6-year-old, you're suspended, they don't, by the second day, they don't even know why they're home. So it is about the developmental appropriateness also of what is appropriate for a child of that age.
And the younger they are, the harder it is for them to make that connection. Even like what Deanna's saying, a suspension, what does that even, to them, it means they just get to go home and spend the day at home. It's not even like discipline. It's fun for them. They get to stay at home. But there is a very limited connection between the actual discipline and what they did.
And I'm
what
gonna,
occurred.
I'm gonna expand on that. I think one of the questions you're asking is if we had a student who really severely harmed someone, let's use that as an example. The Free and Appropriate Public Education Act, regardless of disability, says if you live in our boundaries of our district, we're responsible to educate you. The difference is if we have a student in that situation, it doesn't say where or how in which we may educate them. So a clear piece that we discuss a lot is when you suspend, you are taking the education opportunity from them. If we say the action was severe enough that other students are not safe or something like that, then the team, and that's your student success team, has to help find a way to educate them in an environment where all can be safe. When we say you're suspended or expelled or long-term suspended, we have certain requirements. So I think that's the other part. If we had a 6-year-old who took a pencil and stabbed it in somebody's stomach, there's probably more to that situation that needs to be handled more than just the action of stabbing someone with the pencil, right? And so we have teams of people that will then help the family and help the student, but we are still responsible for educating them. So suspension means removing from the educational system. So I think Faith, is there any other pieces we could use as an example there?
So we also have to provide when they're suspended, so the length of that suspension, I'm going to piggyback on the educational opportunities. We have to provide an educational opportunity that is very similar to what they would get in the classroom, which would be it's very difficult at kindergarten or first grade to have that same experience outside of the classroom with a longer term suspension.
So let's jump up to a little bit older age. We can say, if you're in seventh grade and you do something and you're going to take your homework home, here's your English homework, here's your math homework. You have to return it, so forth, you do that work at home. We cannot assure that we can send something home with the kindergartner and that they are getting that equal education. So we may have a tutor that has to do that and deal with things. So I think the other part is it's not in a matrix because it's a very case by case situation.
No, and I mean,
So,
I
I-
kind of get
yeah.
a lot of that, you know, the age. It just seems that when you look at through the list, it's some pretty serious stuff. So that's why I wanted to bring it up and get clarity. So thank you.
I think it's good for the record also, right? That we're telling to the community, we are going to educate your children, but they have to be safe, and so do the other students. The other families expect us to have a safe environment for all students.
Are there questions on the handbook? Student,
So the
we'll be reading it
students.
here shortly.
Yeah, so if you guys would like a copy, as board members, you're welcome to a copy. You could take them off the ends here or whatever. And take a look at them. You could compare them to what's online from last year if you wanted to do that or something. The big pieces are in the law changes that are in.
So basically, this will come up at, the first meeting or no, the end of this month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our hope. And so any feedback or any questions during that time to Selena, myself, Deanna, and Kevin probably, then we could look at them, research them. So,
So everything in the yellow is new. Is it-
Selena, is that correct? Yellow is new? Oh, yellow is we're still reviewing like font and style, whatever.
Okay,
Or we're waiting for answers on parts of the yellow.
I see some problems, definitely.
All right, any other questions or discussion? Okay, moving on to discussion item number 2 is review of policy 3246, student and telecommunication devices, cell phone policy.
Okay, so the policies, just for those who are listening or go back and listen, they're actually called students and telecommunication devices. We put cell phone policy in parentheses because that's what most people call it. The other thing I think it's important for discussion is you will see Richland School District 3244, Grandview 3245, ours is 3246, because some numbers are used in different districts. So there, I just want to make sure that everybody understands there's no numbering is just a convention for each individual district. Okay, so that's what I wanted you to see. What we've done is we've taken a look at Central Valley, Grandview, Richland, and Sunnyside for you, as well as many others, right? And then we took the WASDA policy and through meetings that I've had with you and through meetings we've had with principals and different things, we've heard you loud and clear that we think there needs to be a cell phone policy. So this is our attempt, that's why it's in discussion, of that cell phone policy. And it's up for as much discussion and or critiquing or anything of that we need to have. Oh, and then, once we got closer to a policy, then our admin team will help write the procedure to make sure it's followed through.
I think it's good. It looks just like everybody else's for the most part. I'm looking, one of the things that I'd like to add is what Richland put in, basically their first couple paragraphs. And I've highlighted, so the bottom of the first paragraph is the purpose of this policy is to increase student engagement at school and foster respect for a learning environment. And then the following paragraph that kind of definitely outlines more of like the, whatever the second, it's a big paragraph, but elementary, middle school age, contact the main office, basically. I'd like to see that in the policy.
Okay.
That's the only questions I had.
One thing we did, put into ours that some of them did not have was, the medical pieces. We just,
Oh, yeah, if you have a,
like, because our students that track their diabetes and so forth, right? So there's, I think we had that in there. Yes, thank you. So that, not all of them had a B in there, so we combined, we found that in some that we liked, and we thought that that would make families feel comfortable that we understand there's,
We have quite a lot of students that need to have their cell phone for the next
Yeah.
call. So,
and that makes sense.
yeah, I just wanted, in case you're comparing differences, that's one of the things that we saw in one that we didn't see in others that we thought was important.
well, and when we looked at a lot of different, well, like a lot, there's a few in here, but we looked at several others. So like, for instance, the Central Valley one is kind of, it's very similar, but a little clearer than Spokane's. We don't have Spokane's in here. But we felt like it was the most clear and concise, well-written, with the directions. So with some of the additions we added.
Do students ever use their own headphones with the Chromebooks, or that's something that's
Yeah.
not included? And
They
then,
do sometimes, yeah.
okay, so we have language that says, I think it was Sunny said that the specific headphones can be, used, in addition to school Chromebook. And then on the Chromebooks, is there a calendar for students like going to the week? I would open a calendar after my phone and be like, History Chat.
Yep.
July 10th, that's on, they can do that on our Chromebook.
Yes.
They don't need to have.
No.
Go ahead, Desiree.
So there's a paragraph that talks about how students are responsible for their devices. There's also a paragraph that says that the school can obviously revoke the devices. So how do those two connect? Like if this.
Would you mind pointing me out so I can read it with, which paragraph?
Yeah, so.
I think you're talking about how, like, basically school district doesn't want to have to, like, oh, I don't know what happened to my cell phone, and go and find it. But if you lose it because you violated the rule, that's the revoke part.
So then if this, like if the district or like the office has your phone and it gets stolen out of the office, that changes.
That, if that were to happen, that's then the district's
Okay.
responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'll give you some examples. You may have heard districts who, depending on the size and whatever, some take your phone and then you get it back at the end of the day. That's not what we're talking about here. And I think that's where you're responsible for your own device and
Mhm.
keeping it put away. And if you bring something, it's your responsibility if it's lost. However, if it is in our possession, then
We're
it would be,
responsible.
we would be responsible.
It would be the same if a teacher took it from you in class and they then couldn't find it. It would be the same.
I have a question about the enforcement of the policy. So is there gonna be like a blanket, like discipline each school will use? Or is it gonna be more like teacher to teacher? Cause I know in the past when it's been teacher to teacher, it doesn't work. So I'm wondering if it's like a blanket enforcement.
So that'll be part of the procedures that would be written by the administrative team. And it would be our expectation that it may be a little bit different based on the grade level, but that it would be the same, not at the high school, this teacher gets to decide and that teacher gets to decide, because you're right, it doesn't work.
So it would, I think I would be more comfortable using the word building, would be building driven. Because we don't probably have as many problems at K2. And then about third grade, they think they start needing a cell phone. So 3-5 might have different, right? And then you've got Whitstrand with, you just have different things, but it would be blanket across the district, that it's not, whatever procedures we put in place would be all students all the time. And yes, one teacher can't say yes and one say no, because then they're the bad teacher and the nice teacher, right?
It also makes it a lot easier for administrators, because if it isn't fair and then they need it to be the same and need to be able to have the expectation the same because of those very things. And then that way they also can say, no, our school rule is X and you need to follow it.
I would challenge the leadership, ASB and other individual groups of those groups of students to really start talking at your clubs and events and different things. Cell phones are slowly going away in schools. And I shouldn't say slowly, I think maybe rapidly going
It's
away in
going
schools.
that, yeah.
I mean, more and more schools are saying not, not during the day, not in the bathroom, not in, you know.
And I think that the important thing, because when the whole cell phone thing kind of started and there was a lot of, as a principal, I was dealing with that. And you know, parents might go, well, my child has to have a cell phone to be able to contact me. We have hundreds of phones in every school. You can, if you need to call, you can call, and we're not telling you you can't have it at school. If you needed it for after school, if you're walking home or going, you know, to the babysitter or daycare, whatever that is, you can still have it. But you're not having it out using it during school.
And so we're gonna go back to, and please understand these examples. If you need a message to a student, right, you call the office and we get a message, and normally it's 3 to 5 minutes that the message gets there.
Yeah.
If it's emergent, something sad or traumatic, you don't want the student to get the message in the middle of class anyhow. You'd like them to be called to the counselor's office and the message delivered privately. So there really are some traditional ways that actually work good for messaging. You had a question?
Not necessarily a question, but I do agree that a cell phone policy is needed. I've noticed, especially last year, like I look up in the classroom and I see all my classmates on their phone. And I'm just wondering, like, where's like the verbal communication? We're just all texting each other, but we're face to face. Why can't we talk? So I do agree that a policy is needed, and I think this is a good start.
I think in some ways this was something that we did as a district probably in 2019 and kind of through COVID, it went away for whatever reason. So I think it's important. And I appreciate your input on that, but I think
And-
it's something that needs to move forward.
And our previous policy was not this restrictive.
Get this feedback from parents. Or the next,
First
the
time.
next.
This is really the first publication that we've
So
talked
we'll
about
start
it,
getting
and
it
so we'll
actually.
start getting some feedback, and as you
guys
will.
get on your phone.
You know, you'll, I'm sure, you know, as soon as somebody starts listening and does whatever, they'll come out and they listen to this, the newspaper listens to us, they always make a comment in the paper, right? So we'll start getting some things. I think you're gonna hear, it's gonna be very polar. This is the best thing ever, and I
Right.
can't believe you're doing this. So it's also how it's delivered, right? We're not telling families that we don't want them to communicate with their children. We just need in class, eyes on the teacher, eyes on the board, eyes on the projector, not on, not on a device.
And I think as we get, through this, we're getting, you know, a little closer to maybe, some suggestions and changes. Then we can start to put the message out, to give parents the heads up that this is coming.
Great feedback.
There are questions or comments? So maybe we can bring this back,
First
That-
reading or discussion?
probably discussion.
Okay.
But what do you think? Or do you want to go first reading?
I can bring a change with first reading.
Then I would go first reading.
And that is exceptionally timely, if we want a first reading, a second reading, and policy before school starts, so we can get the messaging out to families.
And that would be part of our handbook anyway.
Correct.
So I think that's good timing. So let's do first reading, next week. Sounds good. Thank you. All right, next up is, once I get to it. Inaugural Prosser High School Basketball Golf Scramble. Brian, welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, green light.
All right. Good evening. My name is Ryan Wood. I am a girls' high school assistant coach for basketball and a high school teacher. Last meeting, Kason Blair came on behalf of me as I was out of town. Him and I have been working on this idea for what we kind of deem as a fundraiser, but it's kind of morphed. And I, kind of after the feedback from the last meeting, we've kind of had we're kind of thinking of changing gears and how we word some of this. From what I understood with Kason and talking with him right after the meeting, some of the feedback that we got with this was, number one, kind of, are we tapping out a community that's already kind of tapped out? And in terms of the fundraising, are we stepping on the toes of the golf coaches and some of the fundraising that is kind of maybe at their opportunity and their sport? As well as I think the hospital, it was said maybe the hospital had their golf fundraiser on the same day. So kind of looking at those three, I'll start with the easiest one. I reached out to both boys and girls golf coaches. They said, absolutely, you can have it. We have no plans for a golf tournament. Secondly, it kind of as of yesterday, when Kason and I were really trying to figure this out and try and make this possible, we kind of got to the decision that, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. So maybe we are biting off too much for this golf tournament to start. And kind of multi kind of angles with it. We were worried that, yes, you know, if I'll use Northwest Farm Supply because they've been a great sponsor for our basketball programs. How do we, number one, kind of not upset them with like, hey, you guys have given us a lot of money. Let's not include them in this fundraiser. And then, you know, they look at it as, wow, you guys didn't even ask us. So we kind of got in that battle of like, man, like, how do we even start this? So we kind of have gone backwards, and maybe we shouldn't offer this out as a sponsorship activity, and more of just kind of a community building piece where we are just having a bunch of teams, as many teams want to sign up as possible, to get it going for this first year and maybe first couple years of just, it's more of a community thing, and going out kind of that angle. We still would use, we would kind of split the funds. I believe it's like 60-40 with the golf course. So we still would get a little bit, but in terms of a fundraiser, but not looking at getting all the sponsorships and trying to tap out the community, which probably would end up being the same people. So we're gonna, if it's okay, we kind of redact that out, that we're not going to ask for sponsorships. It's more of just a community piece to kind of get everybody together at the beginning of the school year, and have some fun playing golf. The last piece was, I think the hospital has their fundraiser, and theirs is actually, not saying that maybe I misheard, but it's actually Friday, September 5th. Ours is the 6th. I know that's back to back, but we have had people reach out and say, hey, you know, we're excited for all weekend golf activities. So we don't know how people have heard. I don't know if it was because they watched the last meeting or what, but people have already kind of said we're excited. And so that's kind of what we're looking, is kind of in seeking this approval. We're going to take the sponsorships and not go out and reach out to businesses, small businesses, and try and tap them out. But leave it as a small fundraiser, just splitting that fee with Black Rock Creek Golf Course, and just kind of having it as a community kind of beginning of the year kickoff, I guess, for our basketball programs.
Well, I'm the one that had all those questions, so
Okay.
thank you. You did a
Yeah.
great job, coming back with the information that I was interested in hearing. I wish you guys a lot of luck. I am sure that there are gonna be golfers that go from the 19th hole at Canyon Lakes on Friday to the first hole on Saturday and have a big weekend. So I wish you a lot of luck.
Any other questions, comments? I move to approve the inaugural Prosser High School basketball golf scramble.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Students? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Next up is contract for special services director.
I've just tried to make a practice of when we have a new employee that you're aware of what their contract is, what it says. We don't technically have to bring them to you, but I think it's good public business.
A question on the contract itself.
Can I make it typo?
I don't think so. It's in 12C. Basically, the sentence says if terminated without cause, the director shall be entitled to severance compensation as outlined in section 11 of this contract. If I go up to 11, I can't find where there's any terms or definitions in it. And like I said, I could have missed it, but I
No.
read it more than once and I can't seem to find it.
Think, go to 11B. In bold, it says termination section of this contract, but
Right.
then takes you down to the bottom.
Oh, so we
To
gotta
take
go
the-
to 11.
And then it takes you to 12. I don't know why it was.
And that's kind of what I saw too, but there's no language that supports the severance compensation.
Oh.
I could have missed it, but I couldn't find it.
13 is about severance.
Oh, maybe it has the wrong number?
Oh, I guess I didn't read far.
Oh, I'm sorry. Instead of 11, it should be 13. My apologies. Severance is in 13. So, but now wait a second. That's really good. One public means hears, that means we're reading it, right? I mean, we really are reading
all
it.
the way.
Well, but no, I'm just saying we're reading it so we question the work.
I thought I
But
was missing
so,
it in
but
11
we,
forever.
I just want everybody to understand that then we will fix that number and it'll be re-signed. Do you want it to come back to you or may I fix that 11 to a 13?
I think I'd feel comfortable approving it with the edits.
I agree.
Yeah, I would make a motion to approve the contract for special services director with the change.
Second that. Any other questions? Students? So it's been moved and seconded to approve the contract. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is comprehensive healthcare service agreement for 25-26.
So we've done this for the last several years, comprehensive healthcare. We have a counselor that works here with our students. If a student is on Medicaid, those services are billed through Medicaid. If a student needs services and they have private insurance, then we are billed for that, and that is to allow for students to receive services and not have to go outside of the district. And we have a handful of students that take advantage of that. Sometimes they don't have transportation. So it's a good opportunity to be able to provide counseling services within our district at a relatively nominal rate. I mean, it's expensive, but it's not a lot of students. As long as I have the money, we will do it, and we don't pay for it unless they use the services, so. Once we know for sure what all of the money we have, we'll make a decision whether we can continue to do it or not.
So that was my question
Yeah.
on the LAP funds.
Yes,
Um,
so right now LAP funding is about at the same level as it was last year, but knowing that there could be some reductions in other areas, we may have to make some adjustments. Last year, we probably spent about $20,000 on this. So with the opportunity to have outside mental health, mental health support, they could only get outside, that's pretty nominal. Most of the students that use it are at the high school, so they do have some high poverty funds that we were paying for our social worker that we no longer have. So I feel like we'll be okay and not have to withdraw the services from the students.
I have another quick question on section, I'm pretty sure it's 11, compensation.
Is it 11? I have to scroll.
Yes, it is 11.
Okay.
Second paragraph, which would be 11.2. Basically states, comprehensive may charge the school district to a cap of 15,000 for the 25-26 school year?
Uh-huh. We actually pay, I think that's more in the case, like if we didn't use our services, but that's really not the problem. That's not really the case.
Oh, the contract value is 15,000.
Right, but we have used more than that. We have averaged between $2,000 and $2,500 a month during school time. So, yeah,
That would be if we were under.
yeah, well, we won't be. And they're really, I mean, they're really good to work with. I am working with right now though, because our person that provides services is going to be out on leave at the start of school. They're working on getting us a replacement through December.
That's my last question. Any other questions for Deanna, students? I move to approve the comprehensive healthcare service agreement for 25-26. Been moved and seconded to approve the comprehensive healthcare service agreement. Students? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is the second and final reading of policy 3112, social emotional climate.
So this is a second reading. You've seen it a couple other times, so it's not everything we asked it to, the changes that were asked for.
Well, I move to approve second and final reading of policy 3112.
I'll second it.
The motion and seconded to approve the second reading of policy 3112. Students? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next up is vouchers and payroll.
I would make a motion to approve the vouchers and payroll.
Moved and seconded to approve vouchers and payroll. Students? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next up is a request to adjust the board meeting schedule around the holidays.
Well, I'm happy that we're talking about this in July and not in October. So we looked ahead when we were working on the calendar. Our board meeting would be the week of Thanksgiving or the night before Thanksgiving, and then the week of Christmas. And the way our policy is written, we would technically cancel those meetings and schedule special meetings. My suggestion is, though, they'd be the second and third weeks. So that the dates are on there as suggestions.
You're moving them to the 19th and the 17th.
Correct.
I don't see that. But I don't know why we wouldn't want to do it on Christmas Eve.
It would be our gift to you.
Would it? That'd be awesome. Maybe we'll have snow then.
I'll
We could
be,
both
I'll
have
be
a
honest,
snowball
in the
fight
past,
afterwards.
we have had some times where there wasn't this agreement to move, especially like Thanksgiving Eve and Christmas Eve. It's pretty tough to go to work, but I've done it.
Yeah, we have-
Thanksgiving Eve,
We did.
late board meeting.
Yep.
Right.
So I would move to request to adjust the board meeting schedule around the holidays and
I'll
change.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded to move the regular scheduled board meetings for November 26th and December 24th, November 19th and December 17th. Students? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to the consent items 1 through 3.
I would move to approve the consent items.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent items. Student? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. That concludes all the action items for tonight. Moving on to reports, Director of Grants, Kevin Gilman. I have to get you a microphone.
All right, I finished finalizing my first grant today. That was good, a very good learning experience. I had to dig into some other things to find answers, so it was a great learning experience. Thinking Maps training went on in June. That's all wrapped up. So KRV Heights, they ended up getting the first round of Thinking Maps training on the foundations. Whitstrand had expository and informational writing. Tomorrow, we're listening to a webinar tomorrow. Not webinar, it'll be live, I think, but there's also another special session tomorrow with multilingual directors and how to use carryover budgets and adjust for the funding. So that will be tomorrow. So next time when I report, I'll have some more information on that. The recruiter invitational to Virginia Beach that you approved a few weeks ago has been canceled. There are not enough funds available for the districts across the United States, so it's going to be virtual. The last thing is, last week, Michael and I visited Rainbow Lodge. There was a migrant leadership for the students there. Really nice facility. The kids enjoyed it, had some great opportunities to work with other districts.
Questions for Kevin? On the the conference that was canceled, did we issue any money before it was canceled, or did we get it back or refunded?
So we canceled the hotel, so that will be refunded, and we never ordered flights. So it's basically the cost of the conference, which will still continue, but virtually.
Oh, gotcha, okay. All right, next up, Delise.
I don't have anything tonight.
I asked you a question.
Yes.
And I apologize if you went over this before, but do you have the total that we were shorted for June
Do I have,
in apportionment?
I can get it. I can grab it.
If you can get it, just send it to the
Yeah.
board, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I just need to go, there's like a interactive map on OSPI, so I'll go and pull the information and I'll email it.
Oh, it's on, it'll actually tell you what. was
Yeah,
sold?
it's on OSPI, but I can email it. It's probably easier for me to.
I
find
tried
it.
looking, it was
Yeah.
really,
Well, and
complicated.
it's hard to find, and they actually sent us an email directly with the link to click on, and if you didn't have it, I mean, that
Oh.
website's possible to navigate anyways, but I can definitely get you that information.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
They
It's a
really,
lot of internet
they
knowledge.
enjoy an interactive map. I recently have one today.
Deanna,
I have a few things. I know there was, Kim had told me there were some questions about the high school and beyond plan and what, do we have to do it? Well, it currently still is in law. Actually moving to School Links, the new state required plan that we opted to go in a year early actually saves us money because we would have paid between $7,000 and $8,000 for the program we were using. And we've been able to cancel that contract and not pay that money. So moving over to School Links is free at this time. I don't know if that'll always be the case, and if it's not, we can revisit that. Our high school teachers the books that our high school teachers are interested in for science came in, and they were picked up this week. So they're looking at them. I'm supposed to talk with them tomorrow. I have an email sitting here I'm going to send to you. It's online access, so you can go in and look at the curriculum online. You really focus on biology, chemistry, and physical science, because those would be the ones that we would be interested in. Kevin and Kim and Kim will probably talk about this too, have been working on planning for the retreat, professional development next year, all of those things. It's been great to have the three of us doing that. And Kevin, like he said, he's learning grants. And we all sometimes learn the hard way. But it's great. He did a great job of getting that done today. Summer school got started this week. And we have had 90 some, then 80 some, then back to 90 some. It has been a little bit of a challenge with transportation, just with new people and figuring out routes, which is, you go from your normal routes that don't change a lot during, between school years. But we have a lot of kids at Heights and enjoying summer school. I hear about it. I've heard about teachers been there to visit. And so I think we're supposed to get there was a group of kids that I think initially were registered, but they're at one of our local daycares that hadn't been, so now that's been worked out. So those kids will be added tomorrow as well. They're all getting some breakfast and lunch when they get to school and lunch before they go home, so it's great. That's all for that, for me.
Is the hope of the science book, the curriculum to incorporate it this year?
Yes. As long as I can get money from this lady over here. Now, keeping in mind, we have a little over $30,000 was given to us in a grant from Battelle that we have to spend on adoption, so. I'm waiting for some information on the cost and the numbers, but it would just be high school at this point.
Questions for Deanna? Sue? All right, Kim, you're up next.
Okay, so there's no real changes on the property. We do have 2 offers on the White Church. We're hoping to finish that sale next week. We did talk with, the Realtor and our legal counsel. We had a meeting yesterday. Just to make sure we're following all processes and procedures to make sure we're not gonna make any mistakes or make anybody uncomfortable as they go on. The budget, very messy and not good is my statement here. We have a webinar tomorrow with, OSPI. Now I typed this about 4 and I got an email at 5:09 or something that, with an interactive map. And so, if you don't mind, it's a little bit tacky, but I'm going to, pull up, a summation to kind of get you an idea of, now remember, everybody, it's changing daily. Everybody, it's changing daily. Right now, the interactive map shows us losing approximately $843,000 for next year. In title, and I'm gonna read you, you have the, the total,
Well, it would be Title I, Part C, which is migrant education, Title II, which is teacher and principal professional development, Title III, which is bilingual professional development, basically, and Title IV, which is enrichment funds.
See, when she's said them long enough, she can tell you the whole thing. But the part that I really want people to understand here is it's about $349 a student that we're losing. That's based on this year's enrollment. When you look, and I'm doing this because sometimes people have people in other districts. I want you to hear for Mabton, that's $620 a student. For Sunnyside, I've got the numbers and you can pull it up. It's like 349. It's different districts based on what your enrollments are. And those are huge.
So when we get the information that we're not getting Title I, Part C, 2, 3, and 4, it's more than this. It's more like $1.4 million. So I'm a little concerned this is inaccurate if none of those funds are coming. And so I think it's still like their projection. And the average in the state, the map says, is $99 a student, but workhorse we're in the red zone, so we're $349 a
Slide
student.
over Mabton.
Mabton's is higher. Walou School District
$991.
is a little bit smaller than us, and they're supposed to lose 2.2 million. So I still am hesitant to believe that there's a whole amount. If that money doesn't come, it's not 800 plus thousand. It's not.
And so the reason I think this is really important is the community needs to understand that this is not Prosser. This is, and if you read this and you read the news, this is happening nationally. We in different areas have different impact, right? Depending on what your enrollment is. So I just want people to understand. I did publish a notice in the newspaper and I sent out the Pulse of Prosser, and I hate to tell you, but it's a kind of a boring read. It's got a little graph on it. It's about trying to get people to understand that action needs to be taken at a legislative level in our state, and or if you're a grandparent listening in the state you live in, or whatever, it's a legislative action there is, you are, okay, girls, US history. One of the foundational things that the federal government gave to each state was the ability to monitor and manage their own education system. That's one of the first paramount duties of a state government. And every state then has the ability to manage that as they see fit, right? But it should not be a lottery for which state you live in, depending on the quality of education and so forth. So, I'm kind of getting on a soapbox here, but we have to do something. The Prosser School Board and the Prosser administration can only do so much with the money that we're given. I want you to know I'm talking in superintendent meetings. We had one this morning at 8 a.m. I met the new superintendent of Kennewick, different pieces. The number of students that will be in a high school classroom is gonna be in the high 30s throughout the state. Right? And girls, you know, right? Student board reps, the bigger the class, the less single attention you get, the harder it is to ask questions, right? It's just the reality. If there's not money to pay teachers to get the numbers down to the 20s in class, it goes to 30. And the state requirement is 7, Kevin and Deanna, under 3rd grade and under, the number they're shooting for is 18, right?
Yeah, third and under is the average of 18.
But yet they're not giving us the money to keep those classes at that. So like I said, I don't like to be the bearer of bad news, but I just want you to know. Capital Committee meeting, we met, on July 2nd. We have another meeting. I attended some different meetings and I have some people from Benton PUD coming about lights for Housel and lights for the old PHS gym and windows for this building and windows for Housel. Now, I want to make everybody hear, even if we get a 90-10 grant, I don't know that we have the 10 to do those things. And look at Delisha saying no, but I mean, we're gonna investigate and know what it is so that we can come and just have it as a discussion. We don't know what the options are if we don't do the work. Once again, money's the thing, but we have our capital levy money. We're starting the drawings for the Art Biker restroom renovation, so we're working on that. And I should have put it on here. They're simultaneously doing the concession stand restrooms for the softball, baseball, tennis complex. Friends of the Fields meets tomorrow. Leadership, Housel Middle School still needs to hire their life skills. They did interview today. I have not heard if they made a hiring decision.
I got a phone call. They have a top candidate, but I asked them to do a little more investigation before we made a decision.
We still need an athletic trainer. We did have 2 qualified candidates. One, pulled back. We are looking at our list. We had a few more added, but nothing. What we're seeing in the applications are athletic trainers, but they don't have teaching certificates. And we really need someone to be able to teach our medical sciences. We have 3 classes that we're trying to. Deanna mentioned, and so did Kevin, we're planning our opening days, our start of school. I think the last piece I want is our district office team together to train so many new people. I'm gonna talk about this again. When we lost our administrative assistant at transportation, food service and maintenance, and then we lost an accounts payable and a human resource person. They were all in the neighborhood of 30-year employees. That's about 100 years of historical knowledge. You can't just replace that overnight. And I'm gonna go back to money again. There are not systems in place because of either the lack of employees or the exorbitant cost to hire someone to come in and train. What happens then, while I don't call them mistakes, but mistakes are made in payroll. Now we ran an X cycle, which is the second check cycle. So some people got a check on the 30th of June and again, a second check on July 2nd. So somebody's not getting paid. I want to make that very clear, but we don't have the right training capacity to train these people that are really intricate systems. So I've been emailing all day. We're looking for someone that one can afford. But what I also often say is at what cost can we not afford to do it? Does that make sense? You still have to train people, so we're working on that. I do want to thank Sean Cook, Lorena Ruiz, Deanna, Alyssa, actually. What we found in this, each of you have done your jobs probably for a portion of your career. If you've done something yourself for, I don't know, over 10 years or so, you have a way in which you do that. And sometimes because we're creatures of habit, we do it the same way, even though it may not be the easiest or the most efficient or the most modern. What we're finding is they did a fabulous job, those 3 people, but they did things that are not necessarily, and they had their idiosyncrasies of filing and doing things, and we're having trouble deciphering that. And so we spent 2 days updating our staff tables to,
I spent 4 hours today alone going through every single staff member to update who is a current employee and who should be inactive because that hasn't been kept up. Sean actually already spent a bunch of time because there was about 1,500 active employees and then it was down to about 700 today. We're probably all pretty much down to what is well, they still have to go in and edit them. And yeah, basically term employees that are not working, subs that aren't here anymore. And most of them are not people that just resigned this year. So it's, the cleanup has to happen so the data is clean so that the people in our office have good data to work from and we can use the systems the way they were intended because they haven't been used the way they were intended. So,
it
it's
doesn't
kind of
mean
all
it was
hands on deck.
done
We're working on it.
wrong or bad or
No,
poorly.
It was just
It's
different.
done differently and we need to bring it up to the current ways in which things are supposed to be done. Good news, I actually saw Jaime Martinez in the parking lot today. They're trying out a new timesheet, working well. The drivers even like it. And so we're excited for that, because we've had some things going on, so that's good. Just a reminder, I'll be zooming in next board meeting. I'll be at the beach, so I'll find a closet or a room to sit in, so you don't have to hear the grandkids screaming. And I think that's about it.
Questions for Kim?
Yeah, I got one. Just regarding the capital committee meeting,
Mhm.
the research on the energy saving, you're meeting with Benton REA, is that,
We're Benton
oh,
PUD,
Benton PUD?
REA. Whitstrand is even PUD, so it's not REA.
Do they have programs that allow like they're subsidizing for changing lights, for upgrading
Yep,
lights?
that's what we're meeting about.
Okay.
And in case you're listening, they have huge programs right now. They're even gonna come and look at my house. There's some huge programs going on, especially senior citizens. I don't quite qualify yet, but for senior citizens, they did a great presentation. It was very informative. And so if you're listening and you have, needs, they actually do an LED light bulb program. And you get I'm gonna say 25 cents on a dollar or whatever and you turn in all your old light bulbs and they give you new LED bulbs. There's all kinds of things out there. So we're gonna try and take advantage of that.
Another question I got on, in regards to the federal money that we're probably not gonna get. Is there any relief for the mandates and what would that look like if we still have to run those programs or?
Well, Deanna and I and Kevin are probably gonna team up on this. The answer simply is most of those federal programs would go away. What do you think? Meaning-
We really don't know because that's a question. So if we don't get the funding for X, are you expecting us still to do that? I mean, there's
Exactly.
plenty of things that we're expected to do that we don't get funding for. So I can't imagine that the expectations would be the same without any funding because that impacts staffing and all of that. But we have no official word on anything. So
I do want to clarify for those who will be listening later. We have contractual CBAs, collective bargaining agreements that say certain things. And so, for example, we did a reduction in force notice. We did that resolution, remember, because of financial hardship, but we still had till May 15th. So any teacher that has received their tentative contract, that their agreement to return, those people will not lose their job for this year. But that money has to come from somewhere, and so that comes from people in PSC or other unions that are whatever, and then we need to plan for big reductions again the following year.
Right? And then also with any like resignations and things like that, there are certain positions we just don't have a choice but to fill. Primarily those come in around special education. But there's others that we're not gonna be able to fill.
Do we usually receive the federal funds like August first or a date certain?
We usually know, like, I usually have preliminary numbers in the spring to, maybe late spring. And then the grant always comes open. It's open with all your verified July 1st. They've just basically put in what you got last year in the grant for this year, just so we could do what's called, approve our substantially approvable status, which allows us to spend money in September. If we don't do that, even if we have the money, we can't spend it until the grant's approved. And so this gives us the opportunity to spend it until before the grant's officially approved. But we still don't have any official numbers. LAP, we do have LAP, but that comes from the state. So we received our numbers for that, but that's it.
Other questions, students? Thank you, Kim. Moving on to board reports. Frank,
No, I have nothing.
Lisa?
Okay, I have the AP US History Test results for
saw
Proctor
that.
High School, Mr. Dillahunt's AP History class, our only AP class, that 87.5% of students passed.
Yep.
Which is higher than the national average, and they had a score of 3 or higher to college credit.
Oh, that's awesome.
So great job.
Either you happen to be in that class? No.
They're like,
Yeah, well, Olivia's not old enough yet, right? One more year. The junior class, is there a class for juniors? Yeah.
I was gonna go into the budget stuff, but you guys took care of that for me, so thank you.
Right. We aim to please.
Right, you read my mind. But yeah, I think it's a dire situation when the state doesn't give you all your money and get losses in federal money and, the frustrating thing is pay taxes, especially for your state money, and they don't give it. So that's a big frustration for me. I get the LEA money, but the direct, whatever, the direct taxes, I think is a little frustrating. So on a brighter note, though, so we had the local Babe Ruth team from Prosser 18U went to state last weekend and ended up winning state.
wow.
So it was a great day of baseball, and they did a good job. The kids played hard, and most of them are on the graduating. They graduated this year, but and so now they qualify for regionals, which starts on Sunday. Actually starts on Monday. Sorry. Kelso, Washington. So we'll have teams from Canada, Washington, Wyoming. That might be about it. I can't think. Kind of cool. Sure. So with that, I am done, and we are going to move into an executive session pursuant to RCW 4231.10.1G, superintendent's evaluation with no action to follow. Superintendent Casey, along with the board, will be present, and is to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant or public employment, or to review the performance of a public employee. However, subject to RCW 4231.44, discussion by a governing body of salaries, wages, and other conditions of employment to be generally applied within the agency shall occur in a meeting open to the public, and when a governing body elects to take final action on hiring, setting the salary of an individual employee or class of employees, or discharging or disciplining an employee, that action shall be taken in a meeting open to the public. And 7:05, we will return at 7:20. And you guys don't have to stick around, so you're free to leave. Okay, we reconvene, the regular meeting at 7:45 with no future, or with no, additional comments. The next regular board meeting is July 23rd, right here in this room at 6 PM. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.